right, people. I'm gonna have to learn to cut my personal stories out of it, especially when I have an epiphany, and I had one today because I was spending some time going back into psychopaths, and I got involved again in the depth of their disorder, and then I began to to question whether the psychopaths I know are genetic or not, and is there genetic? And so I read an interview last night, with a woman who says she's a psychopath, and she says, and so does a lot of research. And this is one of the original theories, is that they don't have fear. They have very, very low fear response. So for that reason, they don't empathize with people's fear. So they can hurt them, they can play with them, and they can also take enormous risks because they don't fear. They don't fear going to jail. They don't fear getting caught. And that's at the core of primary psychopathy. But it didn't explain everything to me, because there's still more to psychopaths than just lack of fear. I know a lot of guys who have low fear. I have particularly low fear on the average. If you took 100 guys in a room, I'd definitely be on the lower fear thing. Not for heights, not for traveling to like far out places where I don't know where I am, but for causing trouble and getting arrested and stuff. My fear is pretty low because I've been desensitized. But the psychopath, I'm like, there was more to it. Why would they spend so much time manipulating people for small thrills? I mean, really, a lot of the times is like, yeah, so they're getting some money out of it. They're getting they're getting something out of it, but it's not really worth it from my perspective. If someone spends 2 years pretending they're in love with someone and gets $100,000 out of it, that's not worth it. They wasted 2 years of their life pretending to be someone they're not, being with someone they don't like. Like, my God, if my ex-girlfriend, the psychopath, didn't like me, because I really liked her. I was with her because I liked her. I liked her company. She was a challenge. She was a woman, right? She had a great body. The sex was great, and she was very doting. And now I read something yesterday from that psychopath who said that because she doesn't have empathy, she's actually more doting on her boyfriend than a typical woman would be, because she's always afraid that she's not doing something that he would expect from a normal girl. And I felt that with my ex. She was making me coffee, and I felt like the king. I felt like the king. It didn't make sense because I've had other girlfriends, and it was more like a give and take. But here felt like she was giving, even though she was using me. It still was very unusual. And yesterday, reading the interview, it explained it. She didn't actually look at me in the eyes and talk to me, and we would engage, but it wasn't like she cared about anything I said or anything I felt. And I always can feel that. I knew that from the beginning, that she didn't really, but she seemed to care so much about me being satisfied and happy that how can you argue? But still, for me, it just didn't seem worth it. I wouldn't do it for, even if it was $1 million, I wouldn't do it for more than, maybe if it was $1 million at the end, I may, screw my head and my life and do something really stupid for maybe 3 weeks, a month. Otherwise, I'm doing things the way they should be done, or the way I want to do things. Otherwise, the money's not worth it, or anything. So, or fame. So I didn't understand, because what does that have to do with no fear? What does that have to do with, a lot of their peculiarities? What does that have to do with no fear? They can't love their kids. How come? Doesn't make sense. They have no fear. You can still love your kids. You should still be able to love if you have no fear. None of it made sense to me until an hour ago. I said, wait a second. If you don't have, what goes with fear? What do I hear? If there's a dichotomy, or a sister or a brother to fear, it's hope. Hope and fear. Fear and hope. And that's because if you fear something, you hope you're going to overcome it. Even if you fear a dog, you hope it's going to go away. If you're in the woods and you're alone, you hope you're not going to see a bear. So if you have no fear, you have no hope. And that is why the primary psychopath is so parasitical, and why they don't seem to mind getting arrested and spending their entire life in jail for a useless crime. Pointless. Yet they don't seem to regret it. They don't express regret like other, like typical inmates. It's because they never had hope. They never had hope. They had ambitions, granted, and that's why a lot of psychopaths who may be watching this, especially if they're secondary psychopaths, sociopaths, they wouldn't agree with me potentially because they don't understand what hope is. It's very similar to an ambition and to a want and to a desire. But hope is investing yourself in it. It's investing in yourself to overcome your fear. And if you don't have fear, then you don't have hope. And everything seems easy. It seems like you're gonna do it, right? If I'm gonna rob a bank and I'm a psychopath, I don't hope I'm not gonna get caught. I see the money. I'm not. Well, how about this? Let me start with the fear. I'm not afraid I'm going to get caught because I have no fear. I'm concerned I'm going to get caught. Right? There's a concern. It's an issue. I know I don't want to get caught, but I'm not really afraid of getting caught. And because of that, I'm not really hoping that it's going to work. I'm assuming that I'm smart enough and it's going to work. There's a concern, but there's no hope because there's no fear. So it becomes. You see. It takes thinking about it. That's why I had to run home and record it. It takes focusing on the slight difference between a hope and an ambition, or a hope and a want and a desire and a thinking. I think I'm going to get something. Okay. Look, I think this coffee is going to be good. But if I said because I know it's good, right? But if I told you I hope this coffee is going to be good, it's because I'm not so sure. You see? And the only reason why I wouldn't be sure of a lot of things is because I fear that I'm wrong. I fear that the thing has changed. The situation is different. I fear I'm not incorporating every variable I should be into this. No hope. So then you have no hope. Then you can just sleep with anyone you want. You can screw around with people, but then it's not the no fear that frees them from being. It's not the no fear that makes them antisocial. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, I got it. Okay, because no fear. Fuck. I got it. Let me close my fucking window. Okay, let me try this again. No, now you can see why I don't record all my I don't upload a lot of videos because a lot of them are like this where I'm brainstorming. So they have so no fear. Well, that would explain a psychopath who is, jumping from buildings. He's a parachutist. He's in the military. He likes excitement, right? That would explain the excitement part, because the daredevil, you know what I mean? The hero. He's not afraid of anything, so they're gonna go for it, right? They're always gonna go for it. Why wouldn't they go for it? There's no fear, right? That's a big thing. You go for everything with no fear. Now the other side of it was that, but why are they antisocial? This is the part I didn't understand. I'm like, okay, I can see someone being fear and not understanding emotions, but the vast majority, I don't believe this bullshit. Not all psychopaths are criminals. Okay, whatever. Let's ignore those, okay? Because I think they had a good upbringing. They weren't, someone got to them and something happened that they're not completely psychopathic. They're not 40s, because they can at least, if they're listening to me, I mean, they're not 40s. So anyway, it doesn't matter. They're antisocial. It didn't make sense, because people who don't have fear still commit crimes. People who have fear commit crimes. It doesn't really relate to fear. It relates to something else. And I said, I was like, yeah, man, it relates to having hope. If you have hope, then you don't commit crimes, really. If you have hope in yourself, you have hope in the world, it's almost like having a belief in the future. And that hope is the brother of fear. So forget it. You're not going to have hope. And that's something my ex really, and she's the only one I think is truly genetic. I think my father smacked his head open and dislodged his amygdala. But I think with her, it's really genetic because I met her. I mean, I don't want to go into it, but I did more research than I needed to. I mean, her. I'll tell you one thing. Her great grandfather was a police chief, so it goes to show you right there. It's in the family. And I met her father, so I met a couple of generations, and I did more. I can't tell you anything more than that, guys. But I think she's the genetic one that I know. Well, I know she has a genetic issue, and I did a connection. This will have. It's another channel, or it's in my book. I don't like to give away too many things that I'm thinking about. Okay, I'm keeping it short. Anyways, that's really what I'm trying to say is that, oh, and this is the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath, or a secondary psychopath and a primary psychopath, is that the secondary psychopath, they started off with, they have fear. What they lost was hope. And then because they lost hope, they lost fear. And I experienced that myself when I was first homeless, and I didn't care anymore. I really did lose hope. I lost hope that it'd ever be like normal again and be able to sit down in an apartment and talk on the internet and program. I really lost hope. And because of that, I was doing shit out there that, I mean, fear was not on the table, really. I mean, it was ingrained in me. So it still, I'm sure, perked its head eventually. Yeah, I feared being out there for the rest of my life. But in the end of the day, I was causing trouble and looking for fights with guys who probably could have killed me. I didn't care because if you don't have hope, you don't have fear. I didn't have hope, and this is what I think is a secondary psychopath. That's why they have really hard upbringings. A lot of them early in their life, they lost hope, and that's why I think maybe some of these guys in the organized crime, when it's a familiar thing, like let's say I was thinking about the big Gambinos, the brother and the father, whatever, and it's because if you're born into that, you lose hope. A lot of them that they can ever get out, and because of that they'll lose fear. And if you lose hope and you lose fear, you're going to look a lot like a psychopath. Even if you have emotions brewing under there and you do have some fear, it's going to look a lot. And this is why I think that even little me, who's really a nice, innocent guy, whenever I do a secondary psychopathic test, even with a psychiatrist, they told me I have antisocial personality disorder, or secondary psychopathy. I never get anything for primary, just not me. But secondary, they're like, you should go have yourself checked out. You consider yourself, and I can't seem to score myself low enough and be honest and not get that. I don't believe it totally, but I can see it. I can see it compared to guys I know who are so much more mellow and calm and nice and just civilized and socialized, and they always have been. They always have been. I mean, my friends, when I look back at all my friends, as I outgrew them, I'm still running around outside in the freaking streets. I'm still enjoying, I'm still crazy, and I never really lost it. And some of my friends still come out, and they still go out to the events I go to, and they still hang out downtown, and they still smoke drugs, and they still do drugs, and they still party, but they don't have the same kind of maybe I did lose hope, and maybe that's why I'm like this. I don't know. Maybe unconsciously I didn't really ever hope to have I never expected really to have a wife and kids because that was supposed to be my brother. So I never really had that hope. So maybe partially because of that, I was affected, and it pushed me. But the primary is severe. That I knew a woman, a good friend of mine, this is many years ago, and she met a guy, and he moved in with her right away, and she couldn't get rid of him, and we talked about him for years later. She talked about him. She was traumatized. She ended up seeing a psychiatrist, and she used the word psychopath, I think, but we didn't really go into it. There was no internet. This is like 30 years ago, so we couldn't really talk about and look research. But she used the word. He was like a parasite on society in every which way. He was a con man. My ex-girlfriend, the psychopath. When I met a streetwalker, I met a she saved my life, man. She was an angel. I just remembered. That's why I'm on Concerta. I met a prostitute outside. She was asking for change, and we got to talking. I was doing cans, and I mentioned my ex girlfriend, and she said, "Oh, that girl." She goes, "She's a nice girl, but she's a con artist. She's a scammer." That's what she said about the girl that I dated. So I'm like, "Thank you." I'm like, anyways, that girl told me some rough stories. Her boyfriend was killed in jail, but she gave me a Concerta. She said, "You're not on any pills." She goes, "You're not on any medication." She goes, "You're like in this situation. You're just on anything." She goes, "Take one of these, man. You'll put you in a better mood." And I try to. I'm like, I saw her like the next day. I never saw her again. I'm like, "Thank God you gave that to me." I used to take Ritalin. When I was in one job, I had a black market connection, and I used to do ecstasy, and this makes me feel similar, and I feel so grateful, and I'm on it now. I'm on it right now. It's why I'm able to focus, because without it, dude, I'm crazy, man. I'm like, I can't sit here and talk to people like and look in the camera. I'm getting in trouble, or I'm in bed sleeping, because there's no happy medium. Even now, it's very hard to kind of get this medium. It really takes amphetamines, and I'm think I'm gonna do some, because I'm ever gonna reach the next stage of my development. I'm gonna need a couple of weeks where my brain is always low key, and that takes Vyvanse, methamphetamine, Adderall. I just don't get prescribed that, because I get addicted right away. Those are just too fantastic, and I know my limits. And that's something I've always known. I don't know if a lot of people know their limits and actually. Oh my God! Oh no, sorry. I thought I found the glove I lost years ago, but no, it wasn't that. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thanks for watching. Think about that, because I never read about that. And I'm determined to figure out. Well, I'm determined to, you know, I don't know. That's it. I'm just not gonna talk anymore. I can talk forever. By the way, and it's not the drugs. Even when I'm not on a Concerta, I can talk. My brother too. May his soul rest in peace. They used to make jokes about him, that he could not stop talking, and it's true. We're both like that. I could sit here and talk to you guys like this and bring up conversations and ideas and things that I've thought about or that I've seen, literally forever. Forever. Drugs, no drugs. Food, no food. That's one thing I really like doing, is talking about my thoughts. Not about bullshit. Well, maybe it is bullshit. God, by now it's bullshit. Yeah, dude, stop it already.